Seth's story is about turning your life around. He describes his younger self as resentful and a sore loser, but he adopted values from athletics and the military to go from struggling high schooler to Ivy League student on a full ride scholarship to landing a job at his dream company. Seth Bae is one of my closest friends, and I find his story inspiring. I hope you enjoy this conversation. If you do, please subscribe, follow, and share with others. What's up, man?
Hello.
How's it going?
Life is great. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, man. Thank you. And I appreciate you joining the episode today and chatting with me a little bit beforehand.
Of course, my pleasure.
I know you work at Nike. It'd be awesome to hear what your favorite quote is that Nike kind of
Ooh,
goes by.
what is not? That's a really difficult question. But I want to say, can I do two instead of one?
Go for it.
Okay, if you have a body, you are an athlete. That's my favorite. It is just a inclusive statement extending invitation, be part of this like great sport community because the sport's not limited to professional athletes. We often forget that, but that statement brings in a lot of people and invites the public into this great journey of sport. So that's why it's my favorite. And I want to say second one is if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together because one person can do a tremendous amount of things, but if you are a team, your potential is like unlimited. One example I can think of is maybe like there are few mega like artists like Ed Sheeran, Ariana Grande, or Bruno Mars who are just like tremendous, but for some reason I resonate more with those choirs and the band that just like sing together. That's why I'm really into Coldplay. For the same reason you're into Coldplay, because it's not just one person dominating the stage, but this group of guys and gals coming together to make this great music. So I want to say that would be my second favorite quote that Nike uses.
I'm curious to hear, as far as moving together,
Mhm.
whether there's certain communities you've been part of or experiences in your life where that has really been emphasized for you.
Having a really stable and loving family, that has been great. My family moved to the United States when I was around 17. So I know you have a lot of people who were born into immigrant families, but my family, my sister and I, we are just like immigrants. We built this life together. So oftentimes you hear stories of immigrant children like, "Oh, my parents did this, so I'm working hard to repay their sacrifice." But I can barely relate to those stories because for our family, each one of us had our own challenge. At the same time, we're doing this together. So my family also has been I'm not sure if the word great does justice, but like a foundation of my life that I built together, my family, and beyond just my immediate circle, I would say my church family has been yeah, very stable foundation of building my life around. As I spend more time in my church, really being honest about my brokenness inside, that helped me a lot to build this like stable ground and just generate sense of belonging.
Things that might connect between that first quote and the second quote is you
Hmm.
described your move to the US, and that's kind of like a period of time where you were in high school.
Hmm.
And you also described the first quote, which if you have a body, you're an athlete. And I'm curious to hear during that period where you just moved to the US, did
Hmm.
sports play a role in your life? And
Oh,
if so, like what kind of role did they play?
oh, definitely. So I started running when I was in middle school, when I was like 14, 15. Because you might find this like hard to believe, but I want you to know that I'm not making this up. But I wasn't always this attractive. Yeah, there was a time I was such a sore loser, and that's when I started running. Because yeah, I got picked on a lot in class. I was super loud, and when you're young, girls will be just into guys who are confident. Yeah, not so much of looks. So I was very famous, and a lot of the guys who got jealous, yeah, they bullied me pretty severely. And one time I got like punched like halfway across the classroom. And that night I just ran out to school track and just ran about like 2, 3 miles. That was the beginning of my journey as an athlete. And I started that before even coming to the United States, and when I actually moved to Los Angeles, as you can imagine, if you're an immigrant, like no money, with like language and culture barriers, you barely feel like you could do anything at the moment. So I think my only escape out of that misery was to work out after school or even when I'm in school, because I had little to no friends when I first moved. So just being part of this track team and training with these guys and gals was my way of escaping from that brutal reality. After high school, I didn't go straight to college, as you may know. I joined the United States Army, and one, because I didn't know what to do after high school, and second, I think my recruiter told me if you're good at running, good at push-up and sit-ups, you're going to do really well in the Army. And that really attracted me, because at the time I wasn't good at anything. Just knowing that someone would give me compliments, a word, or give me promotion by exercising, yeah, it's so weird, because I was pretty confident that I could outrun, out push up, out sit up anyone at the time. So that was the other reason I joined the Army. Beyond sport, just like physical fitness or willingness to discipline myself physically and mentally, that had, yeah, a tremendous amount of impact and influence on the decisions that I made after high school and when I first moved to the United States.
So you started touching on the military a little bit,
Hmm.
and I'm wondering, do you remember the moment where you first put on your uniform and how you kind of felt and what was going through your mind?
Yeah. It's like such a sad at the same time, uh, really comforting memory, because I remember, I don't know, like, can I just ask you a question back? I guess when you first joined the military, like, were your mom like super sad? Like, did she cry?
I'm pretty sure she definitely got emotional.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, it's a bittersweet feeling, I think, for parents because on one hand
Yeah,
there's pride, the other hand there's concern and worry. That's
definitely.
kind of from my family's perspective.
I see it. Because, yeah, I guess, yeah, it's a universal sentiment. Because sending your son and daughters to the military, that's never an easy task to do. So, because for my family, we already had like green card, and we're only a few years away from getting naturalized to become like U.S. citizens. So there was no reason for a Korean immigrant like myself to join the military. And actually, that's the thing. Like even in LA, or people who don't have like status, they join the military to gain status. But one, that wasn't the case. And although we were financially struggling, if we just work hard enough, we thought we could make things happen. So finance wasn't a motivation to join the military. So my mom couldn't understand from her part, like, why did you have to voluntarily like embrace like this challenge, or why would you volunteer to possibly lay your life down for this foreign country at the time? America still felt like a foreign country to me and my family. I think for my parents still is, but yeah, so my mom was like super emotional. I remember her just crying her eyes out on my way back to the hotel. We get to stay at the hotel before we got shipped to basic training. So I was like pretty depressed, like seeing your mom like crying on your way to the duty station, not duty station, but boot camp. Yeah, it was pretty depressing, and I just, I think it was my first day at the time. I still couldn't. I want to say I still hadn't like overcome this language and culture barrier like entirely. I wasn't sure how to communicate with my counterparts, or the message they were sending to me. But yeah, my guys are really nice. They already knew that I was coming from different background, but I was willing to work really hard and help them out. I guess like I'm gonna copy your answer. It's definitely a bittersweet moment, because I wouldn't say bitter, like depressing and sweet moment. Because depressing for the reason I explained, but also sweet because my counterparts, like I said, were really nice, and I feel like I had a chance to start over. Because
Mhm.
in LA, you are surrounded by hundreds and thousands of Koreans, and I was doing the things that I could have been doing in Korea, and what's more depressing than seeing your mom crying is that just getting stuck in the same routine that you escape from. So my only option, if I had stayed in LA, is to work in Korean restaurant, or get a part-time job at a I don't know, coffee shop or a bar. and just marry someone, and cycle repeats again. So that fact itself was really depressing. And when I first like put on my uniform, it just, although it was depressing once again, it's just the fact that I get to start over was really really refreshing. When I'm starting over, to although I still have language and culture barrier, I'm surrounded by these guys who's just willing to talk to me and willing to help me and go through this with me.
I know you, so I know that there have been multiple chapters along, whether it's moving to the US or enlisting in the military or going to college after and, pursuing the career that you're currently in. A lot of chapters where you started over in a different sense. Did you plan to start over when you were in high school or at a certain point in your life? Did you know that you're going to how did that decision come to life of joining the military?
Yeah, I think that was the greatest turning point for me. And like I think I briefly told you when we hung out together last time. Uh, as you can imagine, I was still a sore loser and unattractive man back in high school, even after moving to the United States. And I became super resentful. Of course, I couldn't date anyone. I was unattractive and I was resentful. You don't want to, if you're looking for dating advice, yeah, don't date anyone who's resentful and attractive. And I really hate. I think reason why I became resentful because I really hated myself, not because of the looks itself, but I couldn't. I feel like I was trapped in this cage, not just so much of language and culture barrier, because I was pretty new to our country and to the town and city that I was part of. And it's like it's a natural feeling. I moved to many different cities in the United States, and every time when I move, I still get this feeling. But back then, I had no idea that it takes time to be part of that community. And because I was so young, I just thought reason why I felt that way. I hate myself. I can't date anyone. I can't make any money. My family will be poor. I just like blame the system. I just blame women. It's like Western standards, whatever that means for people. It's just that I was born this way, nothing I can control. I can't really pinpoint one like moment that I decided to, I really need to change, but it was accumulation of small or major hatred that I was building towards myself. And when I was thinking about college in senior year, and when all the kids were preparing their filling out their FAFSA financial aid application, or thinking about whether to go to a community college or go to university, I feel like one didn't want to go to college because I knew I wasn't going to do well. I didn't find any purpose in studying or going to getting a bachelor's degree. And second, I feel like college would be the extension of this resentment that I have towards myself. So if I had gone straight to college, I would have hated myself even more. So maybe I could have done something else besides joining the military. But at the time, going back to my comments about in the military, if you run well, you're going to get compensated. So that was a great incentive. Second, you get paid to be away from Los Angeles. So that was also great incentive. And third, I really felt like I need to change because once again, I was blaming everyone else and everything else besides myself. So that decision not to be a victim, but to really take more responsibility and willing to work hard towards a better life. I think that decision was a big turning point for me. And I'm not sure if anyone who was on my shoes, who are like just moved to our country or taking ESL classes in high school, who are poor, can afford to go to college, feel the same way. But if there's anything I can share about my life, is that you can't really change anything by blaming the city that you're in. But there's like a lot of things on your table. On my table, I'm just going to speak to myself. There's a lot of things on your table that are under your control. And just by fixing your own household, fixing your own table, one small step at a time, uh, my life became something that I never conjured up like many years ago. It's not to say I'm no way I'm like accomplished or anyone has to follow my advice, but I can confidently say that my life got better tremendously. And I think it was that decision I made back in high school that I'm not going to be a victim anymore.
Hmm. Yeah, that's incredibly powerful,
Yeah.
and particularly I think the image of one step at a time is
Hmm.
something that a lot of people could probably resonate with. From my interpretation, I think being embracing that mindset requires a lot of discipline in
Hmm.
order to know that something is a long term process. Do you attribute your discipline to a particular person in your life, an experience? Is that something you had to learn to
Yeah.
develop, or is that something that's been ingrained in you?
Yeah. I'm laughing because for most accomplished, like typical like Asian kids in America, they said, because I did this thing because I got this pressure from my parents. Once again, I can't really relate to that because since I was really young, my parents already knew I'm pretty dumb, and they already knew there's no way this kid is going to college. So since I was like really young, expectations were really low. So yeah, when I was like in high school, the only two instruction I had to follow is that don't get anyone pregnant. Second, don't get killed. Just come home by 7. So yeah, once again, low bar.
Yeah.
I didn't feel any pressure from my parents to repay their sacrifice, unlike most immigrant kids. So I don't think I have a particular person that really inspired me to try hard, whether in the military or even college. I think I just did it for myself and people around me. Cause when I really look back and can be honest, I didn't even think my parents liked being around high school me. Once again, like being resentful, you can just say it like naturally, but if you're like next to someone who are resentful, it just it's really difficult to be around someone who's resentful, like blaming everything, complaining all the time. And I was exactly that kid. So I think I did it for myself and my family to mostly just to become a better person, not to, I don't know, just like kids, like become the president of the United States or not to just become someone else, but just to become a better son to my parents, brother, to my sister. It sounds simple, but I think that's the only thing I was thinking of just to change myself. I don't think I had a particular person I was doing this for.
I know that in the military, at least from my experience, there's periods where discipline is something that is kind of drilled into soldiers
Mhm.
through training, through kind of punishments and the way the system in the military works.
Yeah.
Do you feel like once you kind of had that switch of acknowledging that you don't want to be a victim and that being resentful is not something that will be effective for you moving forward, do you think that it was just kind of like smooth sailing and that you kind of just took it from there? Or was it kind of a back and forth and like an iterative process for you?
I don't think it's like never easy to completely separate that part of you. And I want to say like being in the military didn't make me that disciplined because I would say because when we say like being disciplined is important, I think the misconception is like only thing people think about is kind of this romanticizing the pain you have to go through. I don't, from my perspective, being disciplined doesn't mean just being good at embracing pain, but rather having a clear purpose and embracing pain to get to that purpose. Because pain without purpose, it's just really depressing. And in the military, although you don't really, although there's a clear purpose of those like punishment you said, but you can't really see it as a, I don't know, from like enlisted soldier perspective. 'Cause, when I was getting punished, the only thing I could think of is to just to when does this end and why am I going through this? So I don't want to say military really, although it has contributed to uh, my decision to be the disciple of discipline, but rather it put me into different perspective. Once again, there has to be purpose in pain, and you can't really articulate those purpose through punishment. and rather it came towards the end of my military career when I was getting awarded. I think it's called RCOM. Yeah, anyhow, I was being awarded to be the most like physically disciplined soldier in our brigade. Just to give you perspective, what that means is that I was the most physically capable soldier out of maybe 2,000 soldiers in my
Wow,
brigade, which is pretty,
that's
yeah,
impressive.
pretty great. Yeah. So, that really allowed me to train through really physically demanding workouts. Yeah, rather like military allowing me to build discipline, it just like allowed me to have more purpose in like pain that I have and the challenges that was in my life.
Mhm.
So maybe discipline came later in the life, but I want to say for military, it gave me a clear purpose of what I want to do in life and allowed me to build these skills to see purpose in pain and challenges, obstacles that were occurring in my life. I think that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. That's really inspiring to hear.
Yeah.
And I feel like people who aren't me, because I know what you did in the military, but people might be wondering, what did your service actually look like?
Mhm.
What was your role? How did that kind of progress? It'll be awesome to just hear a little bit more about your service.
Do you want to hear like honest answer or kind of an articulate answer?
Whatever feels right for you.
So I'm gonna give you a really honest answer and come back to it. So what I actually did, I cleaned a lot of toilets and I also made a lot of coffee. Reason being is because I was commander's assistant. I was assistant to battalion commander who leads about I want to say 300 to 400 people, and of course someone like him wouldn't clean our toilet, so it was completely that responsibility fell onto me, and maybe two other peers who were helping me out. So that was a great experience, and I'm gonna come back to that a little bit because I learned some great leadership lesson from that experience. And second thing I also did, I was a fueler. I was in charge of building like fuel station and circulating the fuel, so and maintaining the quality of fuel for ground vehicles. I got to drive really cool vehicles and shoot a lot of weapons. But I want to talk about my first experience briefly because I had some really special relationship with my commander. I probably made him sound like a jerk by saying that he doesn't clean toilets, but no, he was a tremendous guy. He uh, he was a type of leader who would care to hear your answer of the question, "Hey, how are you doing?" So we often ask this question to our friends, families, or people around me. Hey, how are you doing? I bet ya like 99% of the people would say, hey, good. How are you? So that's how the conversation go. And I find this question really disingenuous. But he was a type of, I think my answer to the question, how are you doing, changed because of him. Because he was a type of person when he asked, hey, how are you doing? And he would like just stand or sit there with you to genuinely care about the answer. Yeah, he was that type of leader, and he was also a man of faith. So when we drive out to the field for training, we would talk about our faith. And he knew that I was single, so he taught me how to attract, women. And he told me about how he met his wife, and we prayed together. We talked about issues around our society, and I told him about my struggles. He told me about his struggles, and even after he left the office, I visited him many times, and we just built this great friendship. And even right now, he's stationed at Fort Lewis, which is I want to say an hour away from where I'm at.
Hmm,
And
nice.
even with his kids, like we follow each other on Instagram. And what I got away from this experience is that because when you're in the military, when you talk to someone like colonel or lieutenant colonel, they're like God. You have to laugh when they make a joke, when you have to like salute when they come, come across you. And even like even after that experience, when I came to like private company, when you think about like someone like VP or CEO, yeah, they're like mythical figure you rarely see, you can rarely talk to. But after that experience, I realized that those leaders, they are also just like a mere human being with different title, looking for genuine connection. They laugh at the stuff that you laugh at, and stuff that bother you bother them too. So one thing about great leadership is that making it almost like this became almost like platitude because we often say it and we don't mean it, but empathetic leadership really either makes or breaks the organization, and I find that to be the true even uh, within my team at Nike.
Whether it's during your service or actually if we even go back to high school, if
Mhm.
I told high school Seth, you're going to be a Brown University student in 10 years or in
Yeah.
however many years, what would he tell me?
I have to be honest, I didn't even know what Brown University is back then.
Mhm. Yeah.
Back then in LA, getting into UCLA or USC, you're just like you're good for life, which is not true. And I think this is when I have to go back to my second favorite quote about if you want to go far, go together.
Mhm.
Because if I if high school me was like going by myself to go fast, I wouldn't have joined the army. I would just study really hard, maybe getting into community college to transfer, and I would have just ended up at UCLA or USC. This is not to say they're bad schools, but just that Brown is like beyond USC and UCLA. So I'm just saying
Go
that,
Bears.
yeah, let's go. So yeah, this is to say that if I just wanted to simply better my life and go fast by myself, I would have chosen different route than like joining the military. But because once again, I was trying to make my life better and make my family's life better by being a better version of myself, I chose rather more difficult route of getting into the U.S. military and taking this detour, then getting to college, then finally getting into Brown University. And there's also, I would say, like third quote that I really like at Nike is called "We often say progress over perfection," which is closely tied with "Go if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together." So those two quotes really resonate with me a lot because once again, because I want to go far, and while you're going far, you can't just be perfect all the time. Your My aim was always to be better, not to be perfect. So if I was just aiming to be perfect, once again, I would have gone to UCLA or USC. But because my goal is to just be a better person, and I once again, I didn't plan to go to like Ivy League school at all. But my along the way, I just realized that getting into a great school like Brown University could be one of the ways to become a better version of myself. So once again, I never intended to getting into Ivy League school. It's just that happens to be one of the ways that would make me a better person. Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds a little arrogant for many high schoolers once they get into Brown, but yeah, that's my honest answer.
No, that's incredible. I don't think that's
Yeah,
arrogant at all.
yeah.
And I think so that was on a very, you know, personal level as
Hmm.
far as also your experiences and how that kind of played out. I'm
Hmm.
curious on a more technical or logistical level, was
Hmm.
there anything, program, or community that kind of helped you understand your potential or just helped you navigate admissions processes and stuff like that?
Yeah, when it comes to just college admission, service to school and other veterans who were already in those like Ivy League schools, like definitely helped me a lot. So technically, I would say service to school. They literally, they literally like built the application with me from the start. So I definitely have to give them a lot of credit, and I really hope to pay them back. And a lot of the companies want to invest in a lot of the nonprofits that are helping like affinity groups like veterans, and I think the only way to express my gratitude for services school and other veterans is to one pay it forward. So if anyone had reached out to me, I never said no to veterans who had questions about Brown University or Nike. And also second, be this impactful figure within my organization so that I could convince enough people within Nike and my organization to financially and also with other resources support service someone like service to school. So that's like one thing. Also, in terms of finding your potential, my commander, who I met in the military, because he already knew that I wasn't the brightest soldier, even when I was like supporting him. But he knew that I was probably one of the most like disciplined and diligent soldier in his unit. So he was very patient with me whenever I made mistakes, or because in the military you make mistakes, you just get yelled at or get punished, like you said. But he was really patient, one. And second, he would literally sit down with me and help me to figure out the problem that I was trying to solve. In terms of building potential, I have to give a lot of credits to my commander. And second, technical stuff, getting into Brown University, service school, yeah, I owe him.
I'm sure a lot of people can learn from your experience.
I really hope so.
And I'm curious, I know that you talked about moving together.
Mhm.
Are there beyond your commander, was there maybe were there comrades or a team of folks who you kind of built relationships with who made a difference for you?
Yeah, there's so many of them. My military counterparts back then, because I might give you a different answer when you think about like after the military, but because the military was such a important transition point for me, whether uh, rebuilding my identity as American citizen and also rebuilding my identity as someone who really belonged to this community. So I want to give my military counterparts a lot of credits for really building this sense of belonging with me. For U.S. military, if you're a single unmarried soldier, you get put into this barracks. And while barracks like in some of them are really great quality, but it's like super isolated from like all the warmth of the town or family stuff. So it gets pretty lonely. I really believe identity is important, and I would even make argument that identity governs my behavior because when I thought to myself, just as mere immigrant who doesn't belong to this country, I just want to do my due in the military and just get out. I wasn't very productive, but when I truly thought to myself, okay, I'm part of this team, I'm making this genuine contribution to our unit. Really changed my behavior. It allowed me to stay longer than any other soldiers. It really allowed me to work out harder to be physically disciplined, and a lot of my counterparts helped me to build an identity, not just by saying that, hey, you belong here. I don't think that's very effective, but rather, once again, it was like small, repetitive things. Uh, I know oftentimes like people in our generation suffer with FOMO because in college, you would know. I think you have this fear because your friends would dump you if something better came along. I think none of the maybe only small percent of college students or people in my generation can say I don't suffer from FOMO because oftentimes we realize that our friends would just once again cancel on us if something better came along. So in the military, I never suffered from that because with my counterparts in the barracks room, it was never about, hey, something better came along, I'm gonna leave you. It was like, I'm not gonna go do something better unless it's with you. So I think that relationship really rebuilt my identity as someone who belongs here in this country and this unit. That changed a lot of the ways I view the world and view myself after that. And although we don't talk that often because unlike me, my counterparts are doing really well in their relationships. So a lot of them are they're married or with kids. So we don't talk that often, but whenever we hang out in person, that yeah, the love, that genuine love for each other is like still there. So I think that's something I just don't take for granted. At this point, I think those counterparts really helped me to rebuild and redefine my identity and my life beyond military.
You built that identity, and part of it was also thanks to the people around you,
Mhm,
and you had that positive momentum, you were getting awards. Why stop? Why
mhm.
leave the military? And are you happy that you did?
I'm, I'm very happy I did. Yeah, I say this to anyone like who asks me about my military service because I'm truly thankful that army like everything that army has done for me. I'm truly grateful for that. But I would never go back because from my perspective, the U.S. Army is about getting things done, not getting things done efficiently. So I like efficiencies. I like building better solutions and just like doing it without asking questions. And I don't like cutting my hair that short. So that's one. And some more room for creativity and innovation. And this is not to say I'm the most creative person, but I think I thrive when I'm faced with ambiguity, when I have to figure out my own solution. But one thing I miss though, the benefit, like TRICARE, because right now, if I were to go to emergency room, I'm gonna have to pay a lot of money, or even getting a surgery, you have to pay thousands of dollars. But in the military, like yeah, everything is provided. Yeah, A plus quality. So there are definitely ups and downs, but I'm happy with the decision that I made, and I'm truly grateful for everything that Army has done to me. But yeah, we're just not compatible. Uh, to give you a really relatable comparison, it's like you are dating someone who's really accomplished, attractive, but the direction of her life is like totally different from yours.
Mhm.
Like she wants to like stay at home and do nothing. I want to be outside, like running around and get sweaty. Yeah. So once again, it's not about her. It's just like we're not compatible. So I think that's the best way to answer that question.
I don't know if that was intentional, but you kind of ingrained, just doing it in your
Mhm.
response, which is another Nike quote, so
Let's
that's pretty
go.
awesome. I feel like it's ingrained so deeply into you.
Yay.
It would be awesome to hear about the transition process from the military out to college.
Mhm.
I mean, I know that you went to Brown, but, it sounded like maybe I forgot and I'm a horrible friend, but it sounds like you had another station between, like, military to Brown.
Yeah.
What does that process look like for you?
Ooh. Yeah. I attended this community college that was like, I want to say 2 hours away from my duty station. So when I was in the military, I was still like I was start building this community like outside of the base, and I got really involved in with the community. So I just wanted to spend more time with them, and also it was a really quiet space. So if I had gone back to Los Angeles, I knew that I wasn't gonna do well because all the distractions, a big city, parties like all the time. So I wanted to take some time up from all the fun and really focus on my life. So that's why I chose to go to a very small community college in Syracuse. So because it was so small, unlike most veterans feeling like who doesn't like fit in with like their classmates, I rarely got that because one it was really small. Second, there were a lot of student veterans in at the school that I attended, so I didn't feel like out of place at all. But like more challenging part was academics. I just didn't know how to study effectively, so I would have to spend more time solving the same solution. Because when you think about it, I had like rarely any proper education because I joined the military right after high school, and even in high school, I only had like 3 years of U.S. proper education in a very uh, underfunded public school. So yeah, just like catching up on the education gap was big. So I think this blessing in disguise is that because I attended small school, all the resources were available like readily. So when you go to like office hours at a school like Brown, you have to make an appointment. Sometimes you have to get in the line to just to speak with your professor for 10 minutes. But within community college, whenever I knock on the door, professor was there, and he or she, they were just my private tutor. So I would sit down with them for hours to figure out the solution, or even just talk about life. And yeah, that was a great blessing for me. And once again, because it was a small school, I had a lot of opportunity, so I didn't pay a dime. Like whether it's tuition or other expenses, if you try really harder if you try really hard to look into available resources, they were available because once again, small school, with a lot of resources. So yeah, it was such a blessing and great smooth like transition from a like student veteran. So
Hmm.
I think I made a great decision there. Although like I missed out on a lot of the fun because people, college students like try to have. I guess that's a trade off. There's like no party. Once again, community college, even within community college, it was a small one. But I think the trade off was worth it. And
Yeah,
looking back, yeah, just like same with the decision to join the military. I think it was a great decision to stay within a small suburban town to study.
that's awesome. And I know you touched a little bit on there's resources out there, and
Mhm.
you just got to find them. How do you develop that intuition, or what exactly were those resources
Mhm.
that helped you kind of build that positive momentum when you're in community college?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't speak too much about financial resources because I'm not the expert. But when I say resources, I'm also talking about like human capital. I know you were talking about community college, but building connection within community college and even when I was at Brown really alter the course of my professional career or even just path in my personal life. So once again, in community college, I look into a lot of financial aid or scholarship available for students. You could look into it if you're in small community college, and also even at Brown, a lot of donors who has this big heart for non-traditional student like myself would donate a lot of money, especially for the program that I was part of. I was granted maybe 2, 3 grand for a research, and it wasn't even that big. It was only a semester project that I had to do. So if I can receive a 3, 4 grand for a research 10-page research paper that I had to write, there could be more resources, financial resources available for a big project that you're planning. So I really encourage someone like me to be hopeful and look into those resources. But I really want to talk about human capital and connections that could be your huge resource. So I think I briefly told you about this. Uh, there are a lot of people who were in like our shoes, and now they're accomplished and big contributors of our society, willing to help you and inspire you. And I think when I was at Brown, I was just trying to find the ways to honestly like secure internship. I wasn't very successful. I thought I was into consulting. I thought I was into banking. So just like any other Brown students, I applied to big three like consulting firms or JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, because once again I had no background in consulting and finance, but because everyone was going for it, I thought those are the right path for me, and I wasn't successful. Although I got to maybe 1 or 2 interviews, I never made it to the final round. So I was pretty lost and wasn't sure what to do. Like really questioning myself. Ooh, I thought I was good enough to do XYZ at Brown University, but I guess I was not. So one time I had a chance to speak with this really influential person at Brown, and I simply told him what I was feeling. He's like, "Hey, like I came from this background, and I try really hard to get here, and I feel like I'm stuck here. I'm not sure if the amount of resources that I have compares to other this brown kids whose parents are millionaires, or I'm not sure if the amount of time I've spent in this country or lack of experiences, but like I really want to empower other people because although I'm still stuck here, my life is like there's no question about it. My life got better, so I believe if I can just find the next step after Brown, I think I'll be able to do a tremendous amount of good for my community and people around me. But do you have any advice on what I could potentially do to find that answer? Like, what could I do like this upcoming summer? And he was like deeply, I wouldn't say impressed. We just like built a genuine connection. Reason being because he was also in the shoes that I was in like many years ago. He was also coming from like first generation college student background. By his definition, his parents were poor and my parents were poor. So there was already connection there. So he understands what it's like to be poor and have to work really hard to get your like foot into that door. And second, his goal was also to empower people because of the experience he had in the past. So we built this like genuine connection based on the shared like experience, and he was like simply willing to help me out. Once again, because he was really influential, he had a lot of connections within the companies and also like even at Nike. And traditionally speaking, when college students like network, they would go on LinkedIn trying to like get like informational interview with like one or two person, and maybe or maybe not they could get referral from that person. But my case was totally different because that faculty who was deeply inspired by my story, he went out on his way to talk to his friend, and that friend happened to be the president of Nike, which is like a CEO's direct report. So he would like simply contact his HR partners and ask about potential opportunities. So which didn't give me more advantage than other candidates who were referred by other employees, but just knowing that they are highly impactful, influential people who really make big decisions in our company and our society. It's like willing to support you and your journey. That was such a meaningful resource for me. So once again, beyond just finding financial resources, build this connection and simply tell the truth. You don't have to trying to be like impressive. You just have to once again speak your truth. It could mean many things, but from my perspective, just really simply telling your story in your heart could help you build this genuine connection.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
I think a lot of times it's difficult to be vulnerable with people,
yeah, exactly.
and it might also be a case of there's certain people with
Mhm.
whom you might feel more comfortable to kind of share where you're coming from and
Mhm.
how you're feeling.
Yeah.
Was there something specific about this person that you kind of knew coming into that relationship that it feels right to kind of go deeper and to build this more meaningful connection? And in retrospect, like if someone wants to do something like that, like how do they go about it?
Ooh. To answer the first question, the answer is no. I because I had like no prior connection with him. He When you just see him walking around our campus, you would just think of him as like a very privileged, uh, well-rounded, and intellectual, highly competent person who shares like little to no similarities with you. But that moment, it just I don't know how that happened, but I guess I was just like desperate enough to open up myself to this potentially perfect figure. So then he also opened up and became personal and also became vulnerable about his own stories. So I think I'm gonna have to go back to what I said about speak your truth. It takes a lot of practice, and even before the conversation I had with him, I really try to speak my truth. It sounds simple, but when you think about it, it's difficult. When I told you about the question, "How are you?" being disingenuous and untruthful, like starting from something simple like that, and even when you're sitting in the classroom and when your professor is telling you something that you don't agree with, it takes a lot of courage to challenge your professor that I don't I don't think is that I don't think that's true. I don't agree with that, and really being respectful about your disagreements and back your disagreement with well grounded research is really difficult, especially in academia. So speaking your truth takes practice. Something simple as genuinely asking how the person in front of you is doing. And also, it could mean something hard like challenging your professor, challenging your boss about the things that don't align with your values and your identity. And although I wasn't successful all the time, leading up to that moment, I was already practicing that. Whenever I asked someone how they're doing, I didn't just care to. Of course, you could just say, "Hey, I'm good. How are you?" But I was trying to be really genuine and sincere whenever I ask that question, and someone were to say something else beyond "I'm good," uh, my reaction had to be I'm going to look that person in the eye and really listen to whatever they had to say. So to simply put, yeah, it takes a lot of practice to be vulnerable, and it's not just going to happen in one day. If I can encourage anyone to speak truthfully, start small. When you ask, "How are you doing?" Just like don't say, "I'm good. How are you?" Trying to think of different answer, and if someone were to tell you different answer, really dig into it, and you'll be surprised to see how just that simple act can change the way you speak and listen to others.
It feels a little bit disconnected, but I'm taking film acting right now. And you and I, we actually our friendship really strengthened when we took an acting class together. And one thing that's been pretty prominent in this particular class right now is the importance of listening to your scene partner when you're acting.
Mm.
And I know that you really appreciate acting, and you took a bunch of classes. Do you kind of find a connection between your experiences doing stuff with acting and how you approach listening and how you approach other aspects of life, or is this kind of just like a big stretch on my end?
I believe so because do you maybe it was just in my class, but do you remember Richard saying that acting isn't just being someone else, but rather being yourself in a hypothetical situation? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was really meaningful to me, and once again, because that also connects with speaking truthfully. Acting, I think the second acting class I took with you was more about technical stuff, like how to speak by stretching your mouth or control your breathing. But that itself was really helpful too. But Richard's the first acting class we took together, when he says something about just be your true self in a hypothetical situation, you're not trying to act someone else. That was really good too because it was emphasizing what I already believed in, like speaking truthfully, but also helped me to become a better listener and observer. uh, I mean, better listener is like no one would argue that being a better listener is a good trait, but being a good observer, it takes a lot of practice too. Uh, I can easily say someone is observant by the little comments they make or simple gestures they make. I think also like I also think the one of the main things that really contributed to our strong friendship is I think you're really observant too, and care about small things like the weird small things that I say to you, or small like acts of like gesture about something that I did for you. And when you act, you have to look out for those like small nonverbal cues, and that really helped me to understand how we behave as human. Observing like small verbal and nonverbal gesture really helped me a lot too. Like even here at my career at Nike, the people often say getting in college, like getting good GPA, that's important too, and building like hard skills is, yeah, they're definitely important. But when I look closely, people who get promoted, they're like great people person. They're also very good at their job, but those are the type of people like someone like me would follow, not just to listen to. And because my current role has a lot to do with interpersonal communication, I noticed that people who can communicate and articulate their thoughts really well ends up being the leader of one organization and become a reliable peers. A long way of saying that yeah, acting class, the way I observe people really helped me to interact and building relationship.
As far as communication and knowing how to interact with people, A, I know that you took a persuasive communication class, but B, I also know that you've, and I guess this is shout out to your YouTube TED Talk that if someone looks up your name on YouTube, they could probably find.
Yay!
What was that like? What drove you to do that?
Yeah,
When exactly in your life did that happen? And like, could you just share about that experience and
yeah, of
maybe what you
course.
learned from it?
I just want to say that I think I told you before we started like recording, but like put it really plainly, I think I'm an attention slut. I think I'm always looking for attention, not in a bad way, but I'm past that stage. But when I was like young, insecure, I was like constantly trying to find my place by speaking loudly. But I think back then that was my motivation, just to put something on my resume to get recognized by my peers at school or faculties. But when I really deep dive into it, I'm always fascinated by this idea, whether it is in the form of writing or through like public speaking. It's just I'm fascinated by this idea of communicating your thoughts with other person. And back then, that's when Trump was the president. And apart from like political uh, like spectrum, I was just taken at the time by the fact that these two different groups could be so polarized and weren't able to communicate with the other group just because the other person supports this president and the other group doesn't support this president. So the combination of two, trying to make my place within my community, and second, send this message that we should be able to communicate and be able to have this civil dialogue regardless of your differences, or the motivation to do that TED talk. But I think something even bigger came out of that experience, because if I can really be honest, it was a great talk, but it wasn't the best. I mispronounced a lot of the words. I think I could have formulated my speech in more entertaining, engaging way looking back. But I think it was a good place to start my journey of becoming a just effective communicator. And I felt that a lot after I joined Nike, because way you speak to other people and way you present yourself has a lot of impact on my Nike career. And once again, I wouldn't call that my best speech ever. But from that experience, I realized, one, I had a lot of fun doing this. Second, I'm still fascinated by this art of public speaking. Third, I think I could do better with enough practice and support. When I took persuasive communication, one thing I took away is that when we think about like really effective public speakers, we often say you have to have three elements like logic, credibility, and emotional like connection with the audience. But one thing that I took away from persuasive communication for our class is that people might forget your credential and what you talked about, but people will never forget how you make them feel. So I really took that advice into my heart, and since then, the way, whether it's the long speech or presentation I had to give or just interpersonal communication, I really try to build this emotional connection with the other person. And once I made this shift, I have been invited to speak at a really big stage in my church and also within my team. So you don't often get this experience as a first year rookie at a big company like this. So that's when I realized, although TED Talk, I'm still proud of that moment. Although it wasn't the best experience, I'm so proud I did that. And second, I'm so proud that I didn't stop there, because there's a lot of opportunities within that 20 minutes of my babble within TED Talk. So like, one, the way you speak to people and present yourself is important. And second, once I decided to make this shift of building this emotional connection with the people you're speaking to, can change a lot of things. And once people walk away with this great sentiment from your talk or the workshop you facilitate, they would tell their peers and their friends or their leaders about it. And it was just fascinating transition that I made from trying to be impressive speaker to like trying to be engaging and emotional speaker. How that impacted my professional career, and how even right now, just not to say I'm a great speaker. I'm still a work in progress and working on a lot of things. But this slight, uh, this like small progress that I've been making since I did that TED talk, it's really fascinating, and I'm really looking forward to what I could become much later in the future, and encourage anyone who's interested in doing public speaking or trying to take persuasive communication. My advice is that, yeah, please do take it. And the way you tell your story with others would have tremendous amount of impact in your professional and personal life beyond what you can imagine.
Once again, we're circling back to progress over perfection, but this
Yeah.
time in the context of speaking.
Hmm.
And I think the kind of through line between the speaking and the acting is
Hmm.
connecting with people.
Hmm.
And I'm curious, landing at Brown University as an undergraduate student at a slightly older age than most people,
Hmm.
how did you connect with people? And if you can also share just the details of like how old you were when you started college
Oh,
at Brown, and just go from there.
I was 25 when I first started at Brown, and I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but initially it is difficult. I don't think it has to do with your age, but rather it's just being in the environment. So it took me a while to learn how to communicate with Gen Zs and what like type of stuff that brown students are interested in. I think once again it has a lot to do with learning that community than your age. So in terms of just building a community at Brown, there were a lot of learning curves because I want to say 9 out of 10 Brown students I interacted with, they come from really affluent and rich neighborhood or background. So there is little to no connection between type of lives that you guys like went through, like you and the other person you're speaking to. So that was even a more challenging learning curve than just being older. But eventually I learned that it was like still some part of resentful part of me like blocking that space towards like reach people. And it took me maybe a year or two really overcome the barrier. And once you look at this precious brown students through the lens of their classmate, not just like someone who came from different parts of our society, that really allowed me to build this genuine connection with uh, younger students. Although you would often feel age differences because you are interested in like different things, with years of effort, learning their language, learning their community, learning their interest, I think by the time I was graduating, I got to the point I had enough friends to spend my weekends with, and also every class that I was part of. So also Brown is a really small school compared to other Ivy League schools. So it wasn't like just me like special experience like that was unique to me. I think anyone who really trying to make that effort to overcome the barrier, whether you're older or you're more poor than the other person, once you try to make the genuine connection, I think Brown is such a great community to build lifelong friendships or lifelong relationships. I'll say Brown community is very special to many people, and I was really fortunate enough to be part of that. By the way, can we take a short bathroom break?
No, absolutely. I'll just pause it and we'll
Okay.
resume it right after. Yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
All right.
So this isn't like a precise transition because we took a little bit of a
Yeah.
break. We talked a lot about Brown, about the military, about high school and your childhood. Do you feel like during your experience at Brown, like you changed in any fundamental way?
I would say I would say my perspective has changed because I grew up poor and didn't have access to many financial resources. Like millionaires, billionaires, they felt like mythical figures or evil people who just like to exploit people. But at Brown, you get to interact with people who makes like not even like six figures, like seven, eight, 9 figures a year. And when I, had a chance to like break the bread and go out for drinks with those millionaires, billionaires, it really changed my perspective. It's just because someone's rich doesn't mean they're entitled, they're spoiled, or they're evil. It's just that, I mean, they could be. many people who are rich and evil, but our conventional wisdom, if you're rich, if you have a lot of money, you're not a good person. And I was totally thinking that. And I was like, although I was slightly a lot less resentful when I got to Brown, but I still had certain stereotypes towards rich people. But when there was like genuine personal connection happen, I one realized that they're not the type of person what the media portrayed, and second, I'm not limited to who I am today, like financially speaking. With enough effort, with enough planning, I could be financially stable too. And I'm not going to limit myself to how much money I'm making today. And third, I'm very rich too from like the worldly perspective. Because while I was looking at that 1% who makes like millions or billions, from like I'm still at that world like 1% from the international perspective. Because I think in our program we had a few students who are coming from like Africa or South America who never slept on a mattress until they got to Brown, or they shared their stories about their community. So this perspective towards finance and rich people yeah, that changed drastically.
I know change is a pretty big theme in this conversation and in this particular response. Your title at Nike also has to do a little bit with change, right?
Yeah, exactly.
What is your role again? Could you share that?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out like every day. Yeah, so I'll tell you once I figure out. But my title is change management specialist. Once again, it's really vague, and I'm still learning about my job a lot. But best way to describe my job is that whatever change happens within the company, whether that change is a reorg, whether it's a change in a new software system that your team's going to start using, we help people to adapt and manage that change. Yeah, and that could mean a lot of different things. But once again, that's the best way to summarize it.
Yeah, in a way, it feels a little bit meta because
Yeah.
that's the title of your role, but in a way, like you've been changing in a lot of different aspects your entire
Mhm.
life. Do you think that your perspective is has been meaningful for this particular type of job?
I would say so. I'm not sure if you felt the same way about Microsoft, but a lot of the companies are trying to like really help employees to feel belong within their organization. So that for that effort, I want to say my experience and perspective has been really valuable contribution to our team. So Nike is not in terms of revenue, but in terms of headcount is really big because we have hundreds and thousands of other people doing like many different things. So when this amount of people come together and try to work and build the same thing, there's a lot of friction and resistance. Like work being one, and second, the way we interact, like coming from different culture, because we have a lot of teammates who are from Europe, Asia, and South America, and we all have different ways of expressing our ideas and work together. And that has been challenging in many times. It's not just like nice like sentiment to have when people feel belong, but let's say if someone from Asia, because in Asian countries like modesty is a big thing. So you are taught not to speak often, but in our country you have to speak up in order to climb up the ladder, make your contribution to this meeting. So when these two different types of culture come together and trying to work, it creates a lot of I don't want to say conflict. Like sometimes it creates conflicts, but a lot of times it kills like productivity because one person from their perspective, their productivity has to go this way, but this person it has to go that way. So change management was assigned to solve this issue by once again creating DEI training with employees. And when I was asked to help that team out, my personal perspective from like non-traditional student back in college or just a guy with this unconventional experience was tremendous. Because when we think about DEI, we often think about just racial component or gender identity, but a lot of the companies often miss is this like socioeconomic background or just like different political perspective, how they can work together. So making sure the DEI training we're practicing is not politicized or just like one-sided. I think in that manner, my non-traditional experience has been, honestly, a valuable contribution in that effort.
I know that Nike is, revolves around sports, obviously, and sports is something that's very meaningful to you throughout your life.
Yeah,
What role does sports play in your life at the moment? Not just from the perspective of you work for a company that's focused on
yeah,
sports, but from like your day to day perspective.
yeah. It's really difficult to imagine what kind of meaning that sports have in my life because once again, I don't really think of sports as like different part of my life, but because like more of a like who I am today, like as an athlete. Even when I think about my future with my future family, wife, kids, yeah, all I think about is what kind of exercise we could do together. Or even when you visited me, like all I thought about is like which hiking trail I'm gonna take him to, or like pickleball we could get to play when the court is empty. And I can't really pinpoint one thing that sports has like impact on in my life, but rather it really shaped my identity as an athlete.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating. I
Hmm.
appreciate the response.
Yeah, of
And
course.
whether it's sports or we're talking about speaking, acting,
Hmm.
the type of role that you're doing at Nike, it seems like you're fueled by so many different things, whether it's your experiences that influence what you do today or the types of interests that you have. And you're kind of keeping all these things alive simultaneously. How do you manage to do that and why is it important to you?
Ooh, although they might seem different, but all reason why I practice sports or the ways to communicate effectively or think about the ways to better people, they all come to like one thing, which is to be a better version of myself. Because I believe a lot of college students often say, "I want to make an impact. I want to change the world." I think that's like really good, but my version of making the world a better place is to better version of myself. There's like so many things that we need to fix, but there are a lot of individual responsibility in fixing or helping the climate, like recycling, trying to use less electricity. So this is to say I'm more focused on individual responsibility to make the world a better place. Right now, although I believe I'm capable, I could be a reliable peer to anyone who get to work with me or I get to make genuine contribution to any organization that I work with. But there's a limit to what I could do as an individual. And just because I think one way, I don't think the world has to think of it that way. And before I fix the world, if I just fix my life and get to be a better version of myself each day, it would eventually lead me to the path where I can make bigger, greater impact to a society and our world. So I'm really doing this and practicing this discipline to eventually and ultimately change the world. But at the moment, I want to focus on what I could control in my daily responsibility.
And individual responsibility, I wonder, does that tie in any way to faith or spirituality?
Absolutely. So, faith, as you may have noticed from this conversation, faith is huge. Uh, I want to say that's the very foundation of my life because I grew up in Christian home, and a lot of things that I chose to do is related to my faith. And I'm not trying to say anyone has to agree with me or follow this advice, but in Christianity, we believe that bearing your cross each day is to be more like Christ. And the way I want to practice my faith isn't to just walk up to someone like you who's not not Christian and say, hey, you need to, read the Bible, you need to pray every day. It's rather just taking my, although that's an important part of Christianity, but wait, I want to practice my faith is just taking my cross each day. And what my cross means could mean many things, which is to exercise diligently and work really hard beyond what I could do, and be nice to people. So all that coming together, everything we talked about that I practice diligently, came to the very theory that I like to practice my faith, which is to bear my cross each day. If bearing my cross could ultimately change the world and change the community around me, that's one thing that I don't want to. That's not the type of test I want to take lightly.
I know that we can implicitly probably extract a lot of advice from this conversation that we had, but if you
Yeah,
had to kind of be intentional about giving someone who is either non-traditional in a certain setting, whatever that
yeah.
means to them, or is in a transitional period where they're experiencing really meaningful and important change, what type of advice would you be interested in sharing with them?
It only gets worse, but you'll also get stronger, and the journey is meaningful. It's worth fighting for. So I I don't I don't believe in like this like empty cliche saying like it's gonna get better if you work really hard. I don't believe in that, and the challenge that I'm facing is not any easier than the challenge I faced when I was at Brown and before that. So as you get older, as you graduate from college, as you spend more time in your career, you'll face challenges that are more difficult than the ones you face in the past. At the same time, because you went through those challenges, you are a lot more capable of handling bigger pressure and bigger challenges. And if you have clear purpose in your life, even those just like pain and challenges that you're facing will be worth fighting for, and the reward and the meanings that you receive towards the end of the journey will easily outweigh the pain and the stress you're going through.
I think that's a really strong place to end.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, man. This was such a enjoyable conversation, and even though I know you so well, I think it was really cool to dive into this level of depth with you.
yeah, glad to hear that. Thanks for having me.